Hello, hello, viewers, Facebook friends, and family. It is wonderful to have you all here with me today. I'm Dr. Felicity Joy here with Simply Felicity Live, and we've got our first couple actually here, which is awesome. Love having a first and very special couple indeed. In fact, I'm going to read to you from their bio. It says that the Acoma House initiative is absolutely unforgettable in name, aim, and gain. And something I'm particularly interested in talking about today says, wow, you have institutionalized Black love into a universal holiday that can transform humanity. Good stuff. So please
Yes.
welcome with me Montsho and Nwasha Edu.
Yes.
Okay, awesome. Welcome to the
Greetings.
show.
Greetings to
Greetings.
everyone.
Thank you
Wonderful.
for having us.
So great to have you at this particular moment in history, as the conversation has turned to Black lives, and
Right.
um, and I like to be solution oriented on this show. And I
Right.
think if we're going to talk about Black lives and we want to talk about solutions, we better real quick go to the family. And,
That's right.
and if we're going to talk about family, we better real quick go to Black relationships. So, really have, probably some of the most important people on the planet on my show, as this is the work that you all do. So tell us about yourselves, how you all met, and tell us about your Acoma house.
Okay. Well, we met 20 years ago inadvertently at a car wash, and
Wow.
we've been on this love journey for the past 20 years, and about so we have a couple of things. The Coma House Initiative is the culturally based counseling firm that we co-direct, um, and that we have written many of our books from. But the holiday, Acoma Day, the cultural alternative, the Valentine's Day, that's spreading around the world in 14 countries. We started. It was conceived by me before I actually met Nawasha, but it was when I met Nawasha and when I shared it with her that the birth of this. Um, the holiday is actually 21 years old or a little bit older even.
Wow.
But the counseling firm we're going into our 15th year, but 12th year officially, when we registered and all of that. But we
Okay.
started testing the waters a few years before we went legal. And so for the past, 15 years, we've been using what we call the art and science of Black love culture to really move the relationship, to help those that are serious about their love legacy find, keep, or grow with their ideal me. And
Now,
so,
would you say that that the things that you teach
mhm,
apply really to blacks, or are they sort of universal, but that is your target market?
right. I would describe it exactly like that. They're universal. Black people are the parent people of humanity. So what works for mom and dad works for the rest of the family. But definitely we have service people who are not black, because everyone is, the state of relationships in general. Well, so in our community, the state of relationships is horrible. But the state of relationships in general are horrible because there's not a lot of true love connection. There's a lot of empty symbolism, um, and there's a lot of uh, forced ideology when it comes to love, right? And so where the dominant culture is giving us a narrative that people are either drinking or throwing up, but at the end of the day, it's not really bringing a spiritual nutrition to the body. So what we're saying is that the oldest love story, the oldest concept, the idea of soulmates and all of that come African people brought that to the world. So we have something to contribute, and we find that in our work over the last almost 2 decades now that many people are attracted to that. So we get people from all walks of life, and we've literally worked with every race that I know of on planet Earth. We've worked with those people.
That's awesome. Well, then that gives
So,
hope. If you are watching, no matter what race you are, continue to watch because it is. I knew what your answer was going to be without knowing your answer because if it works, it works, and
right.
universal law is universal. But it is really important to get all voices involved in the conversation of what universal law is because it can really bring a different spin, a different flavor that will
Mm,
be so helpful, even if it's something you've heard before, but you hear it in a different way. So,
right.
Nawasha, would you explain to me what is a coma day and when is it, and yeah, and what does it bring to the conversation?
It's along the lines of what you were just saying. You know, that the universal truth of love. Coma Days, as an alternative to Valentine's Day, is a 7 day holiday that starts on February 14th. So the idea behind a Coma Day is really to bring a corrective kind of thought process behind celebrating and honoring love. Because we have a lot of challenges, even in just some of the things that we need to correct, like our language. So for us, most people are going to say the epitome of love is being romantic, but we really don't honor and appreciate how there's a cultural understanding of love before Rome, right? So it becomes this kind of standard that we're all looking to be romantic. And Valentine's Day as a holiday is about $19 billion a year. But
Mm.
a lot of times we have found people were breaking up right before Valentine's Day or breaking up right after, or just like depressed because of the holiday, because it's this kind of superficial commercialism that happens
Mhm.
and not really a renewing of love. So we decided that you don't need to stop celebrating. Well, you do need to stop celebrating Valentine's Day, but you don't need to stop celebrating love. So the true virtues and principles of love are what the holiday is about. And each day from the 14th, you honor a different virtue and a different principle and really put the work in to take care of yourself, take care of your intimate relationship, take care of your family and community so that you really feel renewed, which is the purpose of a holiday, right? You're supposed to really honor something holy, have this kind of transformation that is personal and community oriented, and that was not happening with Valentine's Day. So what we did
Wow.
was institute the holiday, decide on the virtues and the principles, and really it's also it talks about the story of soulmating. Like as Montsho said, the first idea of a soulmate, the idea of twin flame, the idea of a separation and then a reunification on the planet is really an African story. So in the diaspora, people have many names for the concept of a soulmate, but we're not really told that in our understanding of love, and that our understandings are coming from fairy tales and movies and books, and we're kind of absent in that cultural understanding being presented.
Well,
So
I
we
love, I just got to say, like, as soon as you said it was 7 days, I was like, okay, it reminds me of Kwanzaa and,
Right.
yes,
Right.
having the
Definitely.
different value that, so you sort of
exactly.
modeled it, yeah,
Definitely.
after that festival.
Yes.
And I think, like, by having it, I think for those that celebrate Christmas in a non-commercial way, it really can be like a joyous feeling of a renewal after that season, but it's a whole season. Like you give
Right.
Right.
yourself time. You know what I'm saying? To like get
Right.
into. And there are a number of cultural events that happen within that season. And to me, it
Mm-hmm.
feels like the whole world is sort of celebrating something at that time.
Right.
And so
Right.
I
Right.
really love this idea and for me it's very like foundational to have something not just be like this one day, but that it would be a whole celebration. And there are a lot of us on the planet that believe in the power of love, believe in the
Right.
importance of love. And so just to try to shove that all into this one day that truly has become, I mean, when people are breaking up right before, it's a monetary thing. and it's
Right.
Well,
just it's
Well,
so
I would
sick.
say it's not even all monetary.
no,
Sometimes it's the same as the winter holidays. Valentine's Day is a major holiday. But the same thing that happens at the end of the year with Christmas and other winter holidays is the movies start to play on TV. The commercials start to
yeah, it
play.
becomes a
So
reminder.
beyond the solely, even though it's $19 billion, that's definitely
Right.
commercial. People are also reevaluating when they're
Right.
they're comparing the relationship that they have to
To
the
the
one
one that
that
you
they
think
think
they
they
have.
have. Right. So they're like, wait, we're
Right.
not doing this. I don't feel this way. And this is my
Right.
signal. You know how it happens a lot of times with the new year. We do that with our
Right.
birthdays and other anniversaries. It's a reminder to say,
Right.
you know what, I don't have what I think I have. So I'm going to bail before I make a commercial or a
Right.
monetary contribution.
Right.
It's not worth it anymore.
It becomes a point where people draw a line in the sand because when the worst thing in the world is to be in a relationship that is other than the one that you have in your head. And what happens is the disparity of what you have and what you want for many people, what they realize is that they themselves don't know how to create what they want. So they put the responsibility on someone else. When someone else can't fulfill that responsibility, which is actually a illegal responsibility to put on someone else.
Right.
Um, but when that person proves not to be able to do it, and 9 times out of 10, they won't be able to do it, then the dissatisfaction, the distaste, the disdain for the relationship becomes so magnified that anything that is a symbolic beginning or a symbolic celebration becomes the impetus to end the relationship. So a lot of people say that it has to do with money, but we found after counseling thousands of people and watching what happens, it rarely does. When you made an excellent point, Dr. Joy. Um, Valentine's Day, Christmas, all of the holidays initially in all of the cultures were more than a day.
Mm.
The festival of Lupercalia, which Valentine's Day comes from, is actually in the third week, the exact week that we have a Coma Day in.
Wow.
It was taken from an African custom, so we're still in alignment with that. So, like for Milana Karenga, for example, when he created Kwanzaa, he stayed in alignment with that because with Black folks and with most folks, they don't celebrate something monumentous one day.
Right.
It's like when you turn, I just turned 50. I'm celebrating that all year. You know what I mean? That's not like one day that we're just going to say, "Oh, you 50 now," or it's like anything that's monumental. You get your PhD, whatever it is, you're celebrating that perpetually because it represents a crossroads in your life. And so what we find is the number one reason people break up at holidays and birthdays and things like that are the same reason that they make the statement to that now I'm going to find the person that I want, or I'm going to become the person I want, because those points represent a crossroad. And when you hit that crossroad, you really cross over from one place to another in your mind, and then you want your external reality to reflect that. So then you start cutting and chopping and slicing and dicing till you start getting to the reality that you want. And that's what we see really is the impetus. And with 20%, it is the money.
Sure. No, I love what you're saying, and I mean, money. I might have been being cynical, but money is kind of where the rubber meets the road, and
Right,
it
right.
and it
It's a
does
practical,
it
right,
represents your investment. And
right,
so I love, how you guys are breaking this down to show how people are taking the time to reevaluate their investment of time, which of course is a more valuable resource than money. And they're like, how long can I keep waiting for this to be better?
right,
But everything you're saying, um, makes me think that I crave for people to do the same thing in their own lives, so that they're evaluating their life based on the life that they wish they had, and
right,
instead of blaming it on someone else and saying you're the reason I can't have this life, that they say, like, what inside me do I have to dump, and how can I
right,
become the person that will attract the person that I want to have.
right.
So where can we find out about these principles? I mean, you've got me so excited about this Acoma week.
Well,
Where is it, on website or just in the book?
yes, yes, yes. And we have Wow.
Bam!
Bam!
We have our that's our first book there, and it's called Akoma Day, a guidebook into the sacred science of soulmating and cultural alternative to Valentine's Day. And what we did in this book was it's three books in one. We spoke about the state of Black relationships and where we are, looking from the vantage point of teenagers. And we did that specifically because they are close to when we talk about Black love, we're talking about nationhood. We're talking about global nationhood and building the Black family and all of the things that come out of that. The teenagers are close to being children, but they're also closer to being adults. And their belief system, their core beliefs about relationships, when they grow up in the Black community where 7 out of 10 couples are unmated. So they're growing up in unmated homes. They're normalizing that. They're internalizing that they may have some dysfunction, or we as a people have some dysfunction. And the way it's presented a lot of times, we're not understanding that it's our culture that we're missing. So like when you hear stuff on TV and it says 8 out of 10 Black people are suffering from diabetes, just say, for example, what that should preface and say 8 out of 10 Black people living outside of their culture are suffering from diabetes. And it's the same thing with relationships. So when we don't use our cultural norms, our thought, speech, and action, and the value system that will direct us to what's best for us, we're going to always be out of context. So we looked at relationships from their vantage point to see, because as we started to survey people around the country, we started to see a phenomenon where a lot of young Black women were saying they no longer they had no aspiration for marriage or wanted to be in a relationship. And many of them were saying they didn't want to have children. So we were recognizing through our surveys that that is saying something about who we are as a people and the messaging that's coming across. So then the second part of the book looks at Akoma Day and it juxtaposes it next to Valentine's Day, the seven virtues, the seven principles, the symbols, the things that you do, and the things that we were taught that we don't understand, the misogyny that's in Valentine's Day, all of the why we're saying my Valentine and all of these sick customs that we don't understand where they come from. And so our thought, speech, and action is really skewed. And then in the last part of the book, we put, if you have an early version of the book, the book was first published in 2006. If you have an early version, it's 50 exercises in there. But the later version, Nwasha made me take out so many of the versions because we're therapists and we didn't want the people to just read something. We wanted them to have something to do. So there's over 30 exercises in there that you can do. Some you can do in a day, some you can do with a partner, some you can do with your children, some are more project-based and they're going to take some time. But they're the self-development, because as you said, Dr. Joy, when we talk about love, in this, one of the reasons that people are so focused on the outside of themselves is that everything in this education focuses you on the outside of yourself. So, when you're talked about and introduced love, it immediately, who would you want to be with? What do they have to have? What do they have to look like? Never, what character do you have to embody? What type of rituals do you have to employ? Who do you have to become as a person to be worthy of love? So I say to people all the time, there's a lot of good people in the world who are never going to find the love that they're looking for because they won't actively love themselves. And so we teach the art and science, which is the why and the how of love, so that people can do that.
Wow, that is so powerful. And the other names of your books are super cool as well. Tell us where we can get well, let me say this first. So, there's oh, I love this. You are what you cheat.
Yes.
Guidebook into understanding and overcoming infidelity.
Yes.
I mean, it's so phenomenal because both of these books really get to the heart and to the core of the issues that we are experiencing. Oh, I know it. Okay, let me have you say the website and then I'll say
Yeah.
what I was going to say.
So, actually, speaking of the heart, that's what the Akoma is. So, Akoma is the Adinkra symbol that we commonly call the heart.
Okay.
And that's really what we're talking about, is that heart-centered consciousness. So, are you thinking from that space, loving from that space, living from that space. And a lot of times we have so many expressions that are based on the heart. But what we say is a coma, which is this symbol.
This symbol.
And then the word house.
That we
and then apart. The word initiative. So acomahouseInitiative.com is where you can pick up the book and you can find out more about the holiday. And also, if you're on Facebook watching this with us, you can follow Acoma Day every day and send us a message. And we do master classes, we do lives, and we do regular, research posting conversations based on living and loving from the heart. So, and I was going to say, what Montsho said about, thinking of yourself first, because we talk about soulmates, we use the acronym SOUL, which is self, other, understanding, and then love. So we're talking about building your love legacy, starting from yourself first, and then through the science of compliments, attracting the other that would be magnetic to where you are. Because a lot of times people think they're dating down or dating up where they can't find someone, but we say you're always attracting where you are. So whatever you're getting, you have to look at that as feedback and then say, okay, like you said, what do I need to do to have the relationship that I want? But it's such a sensitive subject because it's about our parents or about our caregivers. And we're not really taught how to love, and we're not really taught how to receive love. Even when we're getting it, sometimes we don't know how to register it.
I will say this, and I will just say it and say it and say it. It is the most freeing and offensive thing you will ever hear, that you are the reason your life is like that. Like, it is you, baby. It's you. I'm telling you. At first, it feels like someone is slapping you and beating you until you're going to die. But after, if you could just let that anger wash, just let it wash. I know it was terrible, I know, but if you just let that come on down, and then it's beautiful, because if you let the anger flow, then after that, you'll realize that you are very powerful.
Right.
I actually just told you that you did all that. And I know you don't want it, but I'm saying that you did it. So that means that you could redo it.
That's
You
right.
can absolutely redo it. And it is absolutely the same in relationships. They are a mirror. A mirror. And this is why some lovely people will not find who they want to find, because that they maybe can't get over the offensiveness, like I said, the first part.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's like, it can't be me. But
that
look, it's
that
just
mirror is scarier than any horror movie. Looking at that emotional mirror is like it's a lot for people,
but it's amazing because they'll just say, "Why do I keep attracting this?" They will say that. It's like you just said it. You just said, "I'm the common denominator," and yet as soon as you turn that corner to say that, it's like, I got you.
That's right.
People don't know how to get past their skill set in anything, whether it's diet, wealth. I think that what happens in relationships, though, is that matters of the heart are more sensitive and guarded. So you'll say all day, I need to join the gym. I don't know what to do. So I'm going to find a trainer. I'm going to get a nutritionist. But a lot of times when it comes to the emotional self, that and not even just because sometimes people talk about the emotions of eating, or the patterns and habits and family structure, like Montsho was saying about diabetes. You can say, yes, I was told to drink juices and eat cupcakes, and I have to relearn something. But when it comes to relationships, I think it's such a personal thing. We have made it a personal thing. One of the things about a cultural understanding is that your relationship is part of the community. So if you are not well, then the next couple is not well. You need a community of people who can support you. But for some reason in our culture, it's so private and personal that although we want to get married, although we want to have children, and we want to date, because dating is a multi-billion-dollar industry, marriage is a multi-billion-dollar industry, we're still divorcing when it comes to the United States After 5 years, most people.
No, they don't make
most
it.
People can't make it to the
can't.
7th year.
Yeah, they can't.
So there's
3 years, it's a wrap for a lot of people.
And it's the beginning of the end for many people. So even though people sometimes linger, they will be in unfulfilled relationships, which is why the teenagers responded the way they did.
Right.
Because what they're looking at is, my mom is suffering, my dad is suffering. So although they're saying they're sticking it out to each other for the children are like, I am never making this choice, because they look pitiful. They are not
happy. I've been miserable growing up under them. And they're saying that they're doing this for me, so I can do something better for myself.
Which explains why they don't want children either.
Right. They don't want
children make you miserable, and marriage make you miserable.
That's right.
That's what you just taught me. Nice job.
Yeah.
That's right.
That's another reason I do this show. I try to say it almost every show. It comes up quite a bit. People don't know what kind of people get coaches. And in our community, what kind of people get counseling? And I think it's important to understand the answer to that question is the most successful.
Right.
That's what we don't know. Like everybody 6 figures and over has a coach. Like 95%. It is a complete anomaly for you to reach an upper echelon and not have had a coach. So if you're wondering, like, is coaching for me?
Yeah, I've never seen that.
Yeah, right. Is coaching or counseling for me? Yes, it depends on where you want to go. You like what you got? No, not for you. You want something more? It is for you. And that's what I just like to let people know, because a lot of people too, even in middle America and stuff, they don't know, like, who gets coaches? Like, that just sounds like, no, like the most successful people get that. And so it's really important in this culture where we are poorly acculturized in relationships. Like, you want a whole retraining on that deal. Like, you need a whole overhaul. There's nothing wrong with you that you don't understand how to do this. In our culture, like, we don't get how to do this.
Yeah.
And I have to say this. This was the thing you were talking about in the first half of your book. I just kept getting ahas, and I was like, I need a piece of paper. But to say that we are operating outside of our culture is so is such a huge aha, because you have to answer, how did we go from 70% of our homes having a nuclear family in the 70s to 20% 40 years later? Like, that's intense. That's insane. It is an agenda, but it makes sense to see that that actually is 100% opposite of our culture. It's 100% opposite of who we understand ourselves to be. So now we're walking around sort of identityless, like not really.
That's excellent.
Who we are.
That is an excellent description of what we talk about, and we agree with you 100%. Let me back up and say, what is unique about the earlier point, because you're making so many successive points that are like, it's like a domino, right? So first of all, what is unique about us, though, outside of high performance people and successful people, 6 figures and beyond, or any other material impact that you're having in the world? Anybody who's great at anything has a coach. From, like in the male dynamic, the whole a bunch of men are talking about the Michael Jordan documentary that just came out, and we looking at the greatest and how it was the coaching of him and the support around him that helped him to become so great, right? So I echo that point. I've never seen this anomaly of the person who's just great by themselves. That's not an African concept. That's why we say no person is an island. But us as a people have had the most unique human experience on earth, where we are the first and parent people of humanity, but have been stripped of our psychological position. So we have a disorientation on everything. So we need counsel more than anything just to function. We don't know how to emote. We don't know how to express. We don't know how to hurt. We don't know how to heal. We don't have our language anymore. And we find ourselves in a very strange, precarious situation where we can't really effectively be ourselves. So now when there's challenges that are put upon us, like finding a mate and all of the other things that life presents, we're really out of touch. And as we become more and more out of touch, statistics show that we are, you know, even you know, in a success world, you build or you account for wealth by ownership and not debt, right? So you can have positive debt, like
Right. Right.
40 million, you can have a $40 million record contract, but 39.5 million of that is a debt. You know what I mean? Like, it's not really, you don't own anything.
Right.
So if you look at us financially, we've lost in economics, we lost in education, we lost in even entertainment, because we're not necessarily producing anymore. We're not the main producers of the things that we create. So we've lost in all, systemically, we've lost, but we are the last people to acknowledge, because of some kind of stigma. The craziest thing in the world is we have our craziness has been stigmatized to the point that it is acceptable to be crazy in a group than to say, hey, I don't want to feel this way anymore. I know that I recognize that I need some help. We are in some families 3 and 4 generations, because I have worked with adjudicated youth for many years, over 25 years. We are since the late 80s, we are 4, 5 generations now in some families where there hasn't been a married couple. Do you know the systemic damage that that does to the psyche of the children, and then what they bring to the world? So when Nwasha said that an African concept is that your relationship is not just about you. We think that our partner is some toy that is supposed to make us happy, but you have a micro purpose of your relationship. Your life has purpose. That's individually. Good.
That's good.
You have a micro purpose, which is the complementarity of how one personality comes together with another personality to become the 2 puzzle pieces, or the lock and key. They create something unique that the one of them isn't together by themselves. Together they create something unique. So that's a micro purpose. But then in our culture, there's a macro purpose. Your relationship is for the group. So yes, there's a part of your relationship that's intimate that nobody should be in, not even your children or parents. But then the rest of your relationship is for everybody, because we're all going to benefit from that. Now, imagine how many great people out there are by the wayside, and where we would be as a community if we were all growing up with people who had the cultural idea that was once normal to us, that I need to grow up, learn a skill, get mated, get married, and then the 2 of us are going to contribute to our people to make us great. If we had that ideology, look what we would be. Yeah. Without that ideology, look where we are.
Yeah. Wow. I mean, that's incredible. Wow. Yeah, I guess we just keep, if I had a domino on you, you definitely, it did it to me. And you're the second one that it's like, this is not a one-time conversation. Y'all have got to come.
Yes.
Well, I already have you rescheduled for a different show, but I
okay,
just want
we got 4 books, so bring us back 4 times.
I love it. Listen, I am all about it, because this is so important, though.
Yes.
This is so important. It's so timely. You know what I mean? To what's going on here in the culture, and there are some that want answers. There are some that I believe want as much answers as the American Cancer Society does, because quite frankly, you solve cancer, which it already has been, then there's no ACS, right? And
That's right.
And if you really learn how Black Lives Matter, there may be no BLM. So there are people that kind of want to continue and drag something out. But there are people that want solutions. There are people that actually want to live the life that was destined for them. And so for those people, and those are the people I'm called to, like, you all are such a gift. You all are a true gift.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
The research.
You want everyone to have the life that they want, because, a fundamental principle is that when you come as a child, you're coming from a spiritual realm into the womb, you have your purpose, you know your purpose, you want to have this life here in this physical realm, right? But a lot of times the things that we build up are defenses because we haven't been able to be successful. So when we're a child and we're looking for love and we don't get, rewarded, we take that with us into our first relationship. And the first relationship is a barometer. So let that one go haywire. You're on that indefinitely for a lot of people. So I think a lot of times, even when people say that they don't want something, they really do. I think that we, just like you mentioned with the cancer, sometimes what we're saying with the American Cancer Society is, I want to fix this, but I don't want to do any changes. I don't want to change my diet. I don't want to change my thinking. I want to know how I can have this thing over here without giving up anything that I have over here.
Right, exactly.
And that doesn't happen, right? So we have to do that same thing in love. It takes a paradigm shift for you to say, the things that I have been doing, and I'm of the belief that everything is working for your greater and your greater good, right? So if you can tell yourself, whatever defenses I built up, whoever I met, there's something of value there that I can be empowered when I move on, you'll be in a better place. But a lot of times we're fighting, and you know how they say what you resist persists, like what you fight ends up fighting you back. That's what happens to us in a lot of relationships. You have to be able to say, this relationship didn't go well because we didn't communicate. That's the number one thing that people tell us is communication is so important. But a lot of times we don't know what communication is,
Right.
And no one really teaches us how to communicate unless we really have a speech challenge. Then you will literally go see how to form words. But what communication is, you just start picking up words when you're a baby, and then you build your vocabulary and build and build and build. And you think that you're doing something in a conversation that you're not even really doing. And when you don't get what you want back, you say, then I'm going to stop talking, or then I'm going to yell, or then like the things that we do, like you were saying, you're going to say, I don't like this over here, and I don't want to look at myself in the mirror. Sometimes what that means for us is we just start picking any other direction to go to. Yeah, it's still not in the direction of what we want. It's just 1 degree off of what we don't want.
Right.
But that is infinite. If you're like, hey, I don't want, milk, it's literally infinite what else you could be drinking.
Right, exactly.
But instead of just saying, I want a glass of water, and now how can I go about getting a glass of water? We're on the, I don't want milk, I don't want chocolate, I don't want wine, I don't want apple juice. Like we're trying out 30 things in an effort to get away from the one thing that we think we don't want.
Right.
Yeah.
We see that when we ask couples.
Without the increased communication skills and again, looking at yourself, but there's such an information gap because by not knowing what communication is, you're just going to take your bad communication skills to someone else. And people don't even realize. I mean, I know, so I have an acting background and I would do training, corporate trainings, and the actors would play difficult employees and things like that. So I was able to learn a great deal about communication, and that is so helpful. It is so helpful in relationship, but this isn't what people study. Like one little axiom we would talk about is communication is based on the definition of terms. So, like, I could say a word and I know what I think that word means, but I don't know what you think that word means. But when you see someone get triggered right in front of you, you ought to know. And then we talk about, I didn't mean to, right? Don't react and get so excited about the fact that they just got angry. What did you just say? Because it probably means something different to them. You can really like forestall the whole thing that's about to happen by just saying, well, wait a minute, what did I say and what does that mean to you? And then it just goes a whole other direction, but there's so many things like that.
What you're saying is one of the things we always talk about, like, are you a clear speaker? Because sometimes you're saying something and you don't even know what you mean. But then, like what you just said, do you have the right question because you're an active listener? Can you detach enough to say, when someone starts yelling at me, I don't automatically start yelling at them. I wonder what just triggered this. And can I ask a question that's really present? And am I giving the relationship a chance to give its own feedback? But a lot of times we're bringing old baggage and old triggers that we're not even aware of. And we're saying, like what you said earlier, why do I keep attracting the person who dot, dot, dot? Because you're still doing the same thing that you were doing. So I think like that idea of what does it mean to be a good speaker? Because a lot of times when people say communication, they're just talking about talking or not talking. And they're not talking about body language. They're not talking about, getting rid of devices so there are less distractions. They're not talking about being present and paying attention. What does it mean to be a good listener? Most people are just listening, waiting for a pause to jump in.
Right.
They already have like 5 talking points, like, how politicians are. You have your 5 talking points, and when you get a pause, you're like, okay, great. Well, what about last year? And what about last week? And what about
Right.
and all of those kinds of things.
My
Yeah,
goodness.
I think what you find is that what I say is that the communication is measured by the bridge of understanding and unified action,
Okay.
right? So when we understand each other, how do we know we understand each other? When we're doing what's in both of our best interests. And if you can measure communication by that, you will see that most couples and most people can't communicate because we're seeing it right now. So many people want to talk about what should we be doing? How do we dismantle institutional racism? What does that mean? And what is the best possible scenario for both of us? That's the answer. That's it.
Which you
It's
have
not even
to
like.
you have to go to your first principle for any of that to work, which is why so
That's
many
right.
things don't work, which
That's
is
right.
self first.
That's right.
Self
That's
love
right.
first. If you don't have that as a value, we're not getting anywhere.
We're not going to
In
get
like
anywhere.
in relationship, politically, like anything you want to solve, you have to start with that
Every
because
endeavor in life.
otherwise it's the unspoken goal. And
Right.
and some people think they have a different goal. It's not. Your
Right.
goal is for your self-interest, your self-preservation, which is not bad. It's what we all, it's actually really, really good because when we're all
Right.
doing it, we uplift our communities, right?
Right.
So it's
Right.
not, we have this whole weird paradigm of selfishness or whatever. Not that selfishness doesn't exist, but it's way different than what we're talking about.
Right.
We're talking about building up yourself so you actually have love to give, like real
Right.
love.
Right.
Because if that kind
Right.
of love isn't don't work for you, it ain't gonna work for nobody else. If the self care you're giving yourself is lacking, I swear that what you're giving other people is also seriously subpar.
Right.
So you
Right.
have to go back to that. And now, if you're loving yourself in such a way, if that self care and all is working, now you have a reservoir from which to give. And that is for every arena of life. And as we continually violate that first thing, like it doesn't work for communication or it
It's
just
the
like
domino effect. Right.
it's the domino
Yeah,
effect.
we are holistic beings in a holistic experience, and everybody wants to be an individual, and that's what the problem is. You're not disconnected from the water, from the air, from the human family, from yourself, from your intentions. And so we have this idea, I used to hear this axiom growing up. If you like it, I love it, in my family, meaning that you can do whatever you want to do as long as it works for you. And then I learned after being initiated into African cultural understanding and African technologies that if it doesn't work for everybody, it doesn't work for you.
Yeah, right.
You're delusional if you think it works for you and it doesn't work for me.
I love it now.
Yeah, and then so now I'm delusional if I say if you like it, I love it. Now in this generation, people say, "Who am I to judge?" Because they have no moral compass and they have no so they don't feel worthy of the idea. But the reality is, we all judge everything. Walk across the street without judging the traffic and see what happened to you. Walk across the highway. So we all have these internal mechanisms, and the world has become so ilk that we can't fathom the idea that something would work for everybody. As simple as love. So you have what I call out there love cynics. I love working with those people, because as I tell Nwasha, all the cynics used to believe in love. In order to become a cynic, You had to have believed in it at
Oh,
one,
that's so good. Yeah.
and then something happened to
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
that now you can't see it anywhere, and so now you've magnified your internal emotional state or your belief system out into the world, and so whatever you look for you find. But the reverse is true. Let's go back to when you believed in love. You believed in love because you believed in the purity of yourself and you looked for that purity. When something happened to you, then you stop. The mind works in deletion and distortion. We distort those things or blow up those things that serve our internal purpose, and we delete the other things, or just like, so we do this with people. You meet a person and they're a maniac, but they're just so fine, or they're so they just whatever. So now I'm gonna just delete all of the maniac stuff, and I'm like, oh my god, this person is gorgeous. You know what I mean? So like, I'm willing to die for like 4 months to be around this person because they're just so gorgeous. I'll put myself back together once they destroy me and leave out of my life. But I gotta experience this. And that emotional and psychological detachment comes from the fact that we don't have community. So we are looking for an individual to provide for us. We just worked with a couple down in Florida, and I'm listening to the woman as she's talking to her husband, and I'm recognizing and sensing I said to her, you want your husband to do what you could not do, what your family could not do, what nothing in your life was able to do in 2 years. You want him to dote a certain amount of love on you that you don't dote, that you've never experienced, but you've made that now his job because he is your husband. And what you believe that means is that is his job to make you happy, not the two of your jobs to share in a love. If in order for us to share love as husband and wife, we both got to have it. We both got to have it. Like we can't share it without that, and that's what people are not understanding.
Right, right. Well, you know what? This is, I gotta tell you what talking to you, I figured it out. What talking to you has been like for me in this past few minutes here is like when I first read and saw videos of Dr. Sebi.
Mm,
I mean,
we
it's
love
just,
Dr. Sebi.
I knew you would. And how do you
Yes,
say his
yes.
name?
Sebi. Some people
Oh,
say Sebi. Some people say Sabi.
oh, okay, okay.
We met Dr. Sabi. We spent some time with him. I think. What does he say? What did he say? He said Sebi. He had an accent, so I don't know how you pronounce his name, but we all know
Gotcha.
who we're
But
talking about. It's
you
Dr.
know who
Sabi.
I
Yes,
meant.
yes,
And
yes,
and
yes.
honestly, it's because I haven't been exposed to many African intellectuals, and there is a way of thought that is African intellectualism that's just a little different
Mm-hmm.
than other intellectualism, and I'm fascinated by it. I absolutely love it, and we are having you back.
Yes, we would
I'm
love to come back.
Thank you so much because there's a lot here. I think that it is a mode of thought that people need exposure to. And by people, I mean me. And so we're just having you back. Because this was going to happen.
I love
So
it, love it, love it.
thank you so much just for imparting so
Thank you
much
for having us.
wisdom,
Thank you.
for all the research and all that you give, to people. So have a beautiful, blessed trip tomorrow. And I want to thank
Yes.
all of my viewers for being here. I want to thank my sponsors, my patrons on patreon.com. A screen will come up if you'd like to be a patron. I want to focus on Terry Carl today. I'm doing an awesome event with Terry this weekend called the Dream Masquerade. And so we're
Mm-hmm.
really excited about it. We're going to allow people to kind of try on their dream. And so you're going to come as your future self. You're going to think about who do I want to be in 2 years? We want you to dress like that. You're going to talk like that all
Mm-hmm.
evening. We're
Great.
going to have a little presentation. So
It's a dream building.
yeah, kind of take your vision board on steroids, if you will. So anyway, we're gonna have a blast with that. So thank you, Terry, for your support, and again, thank you to this beautiful couple, Edu, for being here. Montsho, Nwasha, you all are incredible. Thank you
Thank
so
you for
much
having
for
us. We
sharing.
appreciate it.
It's been a blessing. I'll talk to you soon.
Yes.